I mean, his putting is always very volatile. He tends to putt better on faster greens, so it's one of those things where I'm willing to take a chance on it, even with him being at 10% owned. But no, his putting has not looked great. It's always kind of been his downfall. Always been a great ball striker. Putting has never been his strength, but the last 50 rounds, he's 110th in putt, and he's not good. He's not.
Well, that makes sense. Why the TV coverage is always him off the tee, and not at the green. So,
yeah, I mean, when his game is at its best, he hits a ton of fairways, hits a ton of greens, doesn't have to get up and down a ton to save pars, and that's kind of the way his game's been trending lately. So, I'm willing to get on Stanley despite the fact that his play hasn't been great this year overall. Because his course history is very good. His long-term ball striking numbers are very good. It's a guy I'm willing to take a little bit of a risk on this week, given his price point in this field.
So Kevin Na paid off, obviously, last week. So my token Asian tour player, or Asian player, I should say, Byung-Hun An is going to have to be this week. Can I squeeze him in the lineup? Because it's been proven that it's a winning formula.
He can be. I mean, he plays a ton. He's been fighting a little bit of an injury. I can't remember what the injury is exactly. His strokes gained approach numbers are pretty good. I mean, I don't hate him. He finished second here last year. He's got a good course history. I don't know if he can go the token Asian route this week. I'm just not sure there is a guy who you can throw in your lineups confidently.
That's disappointing. I was super excited.
Sorry.
I thought I had him pegged.
No, I mean, I can't hate on you for it. He's got the potential to have a good week, but I'm just still a little bit leery with his injury issues the last month and a half. There's some other guys I like a little bit better in that mid 7K range. Not Jim Furyk, but there are some other guys in that range that I like quite a bit.
CH3?
Yeah, CH3 is hard to argue with. I just think he's a lock to make the cut. He doesn't have fantastic course history here. He's made the cut. I mean, he's played it for the last 5 years and made the cut every year. Didn't finish great last year. It always comes down to putting with him, but he's going to be a tee to green guy. He's going to hit a lot of fairways and a lot of greens. I really don't hate Ryan Moore this week, and the guy that I've talked about before hasn't quite popped up yet, but Joaquin Niemann.
No, sir. No, sir.
Just putt. No, thank you. This is what Danger says.
No, thank you.
That's how I feel about Johnny Vegas. No, thank you.
Oh, yeah. Vegas is just done. The guy that I do like in that lower 7K range, not the very bottom, but Peter Uihlein makes a ton of birdies, tends to play courses like this well where it sets up for a solid tee to green game. If he can get his putter going, he finished 5th here last year, 25th 2 years ago. I think he's a guy you could look at to be a surprise guy on the leaderboard at the end of the week. And the course has really lent itself to some first-time winners, and I wouldn't be shocked if he was up there fighting for a victory at the end of the week this week.
I'm sorry, I missed the name on who you said for that.
Peter Uihlein, 7,200.
You briefly went over Ryan Moore. 3 out of the last 5 years, top 20 finishes, 1 missed cut. How's his game setting up for this course this year? I haven't had a chance to follow him much.
Yeah, he's kind of been under the radar. He's playing just solidly across the board. He's very similar to some of the guys we've talked about, that it all comes down to their putting. He's 81st in his last 50 rounds relative to the field. But his strokes gained approach, 14th. When he's playing well, he hits a lot of fairways. He doesn't gain a ton of strokes off the tee because he's not a long hitter, but he's 54th in the field, strokes gained off the tee in his last 50 rounds, 14th on approach. I think the course sets up pretty well for him. His game's been trending fairly well. So, yeah, he's a guy that I'm definitely willing to take a risk on this week. I actually like him more than CH3 coming into the week. So we'll see how that plays out. But Ryan Moore is a guy that I'm definitely willing to take a risk on there, especially if it ends up being, winning score in the 12 to 14 range, not in the 16 to 20 range like it could be if the weather was calm every day. I think he's kind of like a grinder. So if it's not super shootout type of tournament, I like him a little bit more. What it's looking like.
Let's see here.
I don't mind getting back on Pat Perez a little bit. He's shown some good flashes. He's been putting really well. Approach game's there when he's playing well, so I don't mind some Pat Perez too. I think he's fully recovered from his injury, and he's had 4 or 5 tournaments to get back in the game. So Perez is 7,100. He's a guy you could see pretty easily up in the 8K range here in a couple weeks.
And friend of the show, Joel Dahman, just below that.
Friend of the show is
friend of the show. We always talk favorably of him. Friend of the show, Joel Dahman.
We do. He's like the shorter hitting Luke List.
It's true.
But no, I'm actually not on Dahman this week at all.
Well, I think looking down a little deeper down into the high 6,000s.
Gooch.
Yeah, gooch. But no. So
at 7.
How about Matt Everyman to break his 4 straight miscuts here?
No. Absolutely not. I'm looking at his long-term ball striking numbers, and they are pretty abysmal. He's 91st strokes gained off the tee, 64th strokes gained approach. Not as terrible, but no, I can't get back.
4 straight miscuts is pretty impressive. It'd be really hard to go 5 straight miscuts.
Would it though, or does that just show that you're just not very good? I don't
The definition of crazy is you keep trying and get the same result.
Hey, man, like that one time I talked about him and then picked him, and then he led after the first day before he bombed the rest of the weekend. It just was a fond memory for me.
No, I mean, he finished like second at the Byron Nelson a couple weeks ago. He had his flash here recently. I just think he's not going to catch lightning in a bottle twice. He's just not that good. I would take JB Holmes, Corey Connors, Danny Lee, HV3. I'd take any of those guys over Matt Every for $100 more. Sam Burns has a lot more upside than he does at 6,800. I
like Sam Burns. What's the ownership on Sam Burns? I'm curious if he's going to be like under 2% owned, because I think the kid's got a lot of talent and is going to be somebody to watch in the next few years.
I agree. I think he'll still be at least 6 to 8, though. Mark, what are you seeing on him?
2%.
2.
I like his price. I think that's going to help keep Tiger Woods in my lineup.
What about Mr. Homa, who won a tournament a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I don't mind Max Homa. I mean, he's playing with house money now, right? Like he made virtually nothing in 2017. I'm pretty sure he lost money on his season in 2017 and just won a PGA Tour event for over $1 million a couple weeks ago. Like, I don't love it.
Looks like this is his first time playing this court or playing this tournament.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I wouldn't like him as much. But if you like him, if you want to take a risk on him, I can't say you shouldn't. He acquitted himself pretty nicely at the PGA. So I don't know. I don't hate him. I just like the other names we talked about already a little bit better. Your JB Holmes, your Harold Varner, who's shown he's got potential here. He finished top 22 years ago. JB Holmes has 2 top 13s in his last 3 years. Long-term ball striking numbers, like he hasn't played here before. Corey Connors is actually looking pretty solid as well. So those guys and Sam Burns, I would probably take over Max Homa in this range.
So now here's a player I have no clue about. Honestly, I've never heard of him. But 3 out of 3 cuts with a second place finish 2 years ago. Don't even know how to say it. But his last name's Lahiri.
Anirban?
Anirban. Okay, Anirban Lahiri.
Anirban Lahiri. Yeah, he's just been way too inconsistent. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he made the cut. I also wouldn't be shocked if he went out and shot 80 in the first round and withdrew. Like, he'd probably still play, but he'd go shoot 75 on Friday. I just way too much risk there. Even if you're playing tourney lineups, he's very volatile. He's okay on his shorter courses where he can make a lot of birdies, but this is not the type of course I like to target him on.
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never heard of him, but he just had a decent course history.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he can pop up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, Lahiri's on the leaderboard. That doesn't make sense. But for the most part, he's ejecting with a 76, 75 first two rounds and just not being heard from again. He actually looked pretty good at the PGA. He hasn't played here before, but straight off the tee, decent approach game, sets up well for him.
Who's that? I'm sorry.
Danny Willett at 6,600 actually looks pretty decent this week. Nothing.
It's another player I don't know. We get down here in the 6,000 range, and there's players that, I don't follow it as well as you, so it's just what they show on TV, and they never show any of these players on TV.
Well, I mean, Boo Weekly is an everyday, household name.
I just love it. Yeah, it's because of his name, though.
Yeah.
When I look at a guy like David Lingmerth at 6,300, who's finished top 30 here with a victory in his last four events at the Memorial, like, his game is just not very good. I don't know how he finishes well every year, but I like to look at other guys down in this low price range that have games that set up similar to his. One of the guys I like down in that range is Ryan Armour. I think he's 6,100 or 6,000. Yeah, 6,100. Ryan Armour hits a ton of fairways, finished 23rd here last year. I mean, as much as I hate the Ohio State Buckeyes, he's a Buckeye, and it's Jack's tournament, and it's down in his, near his college stomping grounds. So I think Ryan Armour is going to make the cut this week. Mm-hmm. He's 6,100, which I think for him is way, way underpriced. With as much as accuracy plays into it here off the tee, he's a guy I can get on board with. But other than your boy Ndamukong Suh's cousin, Justin Suh, there's nobody else I like here below 66. I take that back. There's one other guy I'd be willing to take a risk on, which is JJ Spawn at 6,500.
I was going to ask about him.
I have a soft spot for JJ Spawn, but he makes a ton of birdies when he makes the cut. Like, even if he finishes 45th or something, he's still going to finish like higher than his actual tournament finish in DraftKings points, which is what we're looking for, right? So I don't mind JJ Spawn at 6,500, although he can definitely spray the shit out of it off the tee. I think he's worth taking a risk on if you're looking for a very low price point guy. But the guy that I'm looking to put in my lineups to balance out that Tiger at 11-2, I think he is Ryan Armour at 6,100 for the deep, deep value play.
So what about any of these old guys like Stricker or Ernie Els? Any love for them?
Me being an equipment guy, I'm in the golf equipment business. Steve Stricker went back to a set of irons from Titleist from like 12 years ago this week. I don't know what that means for his prospects this week, but he just hasn't shown it this year. He's kind of splitting his time between the Champions Tour, the Old Guys Tour, and the PGA Tour. I can't bring myself to jump on Stricker. He's too old. He can't just play Steve Stricker. He's too old.
I find it funny too is he went back to clubs from 12 years ago when he was probably like, this is the last set of irons I played really good with.
He played those until like a couple of years ago. He's played decent golf since switching, but I don't know. When a guy's going back to clubs that are that old, I think he's searching for something. And to me, that signifies that he's not confident in his game right now, and he's looking for something that's not there. And
I see Ernie Els down here too, and I was watching a Champions Tour or European Tour that he was playing, he doesn't even look like he can walk the course anymore. He's so slow.